The Riverside Municipal Building opened in January 1928, replacing a structure condemned after the previous winter's flooding. The new facility housed city offices on 3 floors, with a basement designated for mechanical systems and storage. Construction records indicate standard specifications for the period: reinforced concrete foundation, steam heat distribution, electrical infrastructure to code. The building superintendent's first annual report, filed March 1929, describes routine maintenance and lists all basement access points with their corresponding key assignments. By 1933, the building employed 4 janitors, working rotating shifts. Each carried a master ring with keys to public areas, office suites, and utility spaces. Personnel files show stable employment. 3 men had worked there since opening day, the 4th hired in 1930. Their supervisor, Harold Weeks, maintained a duplicate key cabinet in his ground floor office. In September 1933, a water main issue required accessing the northwest basement corner. The senior janitor, Michael Riley, reported to Weeks that none of his keys opened the door at the base of the west stairwell. Weeks checked his cabinet. According to his memo to the city manager, no key in the building's inventory fit that particular lock. The door had been there since construction, labeled storage, authorized personnel only in standard municipal stenciling. No one could recall seeing it open. The city manager's office requested clarification from the original contractor, Hendricks & Sons Construction. The firm's project files, preserved in county archives, contain detailed door schedules for the municipal building. Every entrance, office door, and utility access appears in the schematic drawings with corresponding lock specifications and key codes. The basement level shows 19 doors total, each marked with installation dates between November 1927 and December 1927. The door in question does not appear in any schematic. A follow-up letter from the city manager, dated October 3, 1933, asks Hendricks & Sons to review their records for any modification orders or change requests during construction. The company's response, filed 2 weeks later, states that their foreman's daily logs show no basement alterations after initial installation. The response includes a hand-drawn amendment to the basement plan, adding the northwest storage door in pencil with a notation, "Present upon final inspection, origin uncertain." The city's final building inspection report from January 1928 makes no mention of discrepancies or unauthorized modifications. The inspector's signature appears at the bottom of a form that certified full compliance with approved plans. Hendricks & Sons attached an invoice appendix to their response. Someone had paid for the installation of that door and its frame, but the line item appears under miscellaneous materials with no specifics. The simplest solution involved changing the lock. The city authorized a locksmith visit for October 23, 1933. Joseph Marwick, proprietor of Marwick Security Services, arrived at 9 a.m. with standard tools and replacement hardware. His invoice submitted the same day bills for 2 hours of labor. The narrative section states, "Unable to complete service as requested. Lock mechanism of unusual manufacture, not compatible with standard replacement. Recommend consulting manufacturer for proper key or specialized removal." Weeks contacted Marwick by telephone that afternoon. According to Weeks's notation in the maintenance log, Marwick declined to return. The notation reads, "Locksmith states mechanism requires tools he does not carry and expertise outside normal commercial practice. Suggested municipal authorities investigate installation authorization before proceeding." The building department's permit archive for 1927 contains applications for the municipal building's original construction, plus 3 subsequent modifications: a second floor partition in March 1928, a basement floor drain in June 1928, and exterior stairwell repairs in November 1928. No permit exists for the installation of additional basement doors. The building code in effect at the time required permits for any structural modification, including door installations in load-bearing walls. The city manager's next memo, dated November 1933, requests a meeting with the building inspector who signed off on the 1928 final inspection. The personnel office responded that the inspector, Thomas Corning, had retired in 1931 and relocated to Florida. His forwarding address was not on file. Someone needed to determine what the room contained. On December 4, 1933, the City Council allocated funds for forced entry by a qualified contractor. The minutes note one councilman's question about why forced entry required special funding when routine building maintenance usually covered such matters. The city manager's response, recorded in the minutes, explains that the door's construction exceeded standard specifications and required specialized approach to preserve building integrity. The job went to Hendricks & Sons, who had built the structure. Their second invoice, filed December 18, 1933, bills for 3 days of labor by 2 men. The narrative section is brief. Removed door and frame from northwest basement stairwell. Excessive installation. Frame anchored with reinforced brackets into surrounding masonry, beyond typical requirements for interior storage access. Door constructed from unusually thick timber with metal reinforcement. No building standards in our experience necessitate this level of security for storage space. The invoice includes a materials disposal charge. The door and frame went to the municipal scrapyard. Weeks maintenance log from December 18, 1933 contains an entry time-stamped 2:30 p.m. NW basement access opened. Room empty. Cement floor, brick walls, no contents. No fixtures, no shelving, no indication of storage use. Dimensions approx 12 by 15 feet. 1 ceiling-mounted light socket disconnected. No electrical supply to room, verified by Janitor Riley. The room appeared deliberately unused. The maintenance log contains an inconsistency. On January 15, 1929, approximately 1 year after the building opened, Riley logged a work order. Replaced ceiling light bulb, storage room northwest basement. The entry includes the standard notation for bulb type and a signature from Weeks approving the completed work. The December 1933 entry states the light socket had been disconnected with no electrical supply. A search through maintenance logs from 1929 through 1933 reveals 3 additional entries referencing the northwest storage room. March 1929, mopped floor, storage room northwest basement, water seepage from exterior wall. July 1930, checked window latch, storage room northwest basement, reported secure. November 1931, disposed of damaged crate, storage room northwest basement, contents removed per Weeks authorization. None of these entries mention difficulty accessing the room. The building has no window wells on its northwest side. The architect's drawings show the northwest basement corner sits entirely below grade, surrounded by earth. The July 1930 reference to a window latch describes a feature that should not exist according to construction records. Riley's personnel file contains an employment gap. He worked at the municipal building from January 1928 through October 1931, then disappears from city payroll until March 1932. The personnel office notation states, leave of absence, personal reasons, with no additional detail. When he returned in March 1932, his first logged maintenance task was in the second-floor offices. He logged no basement work for the remainder of 1932. The maintenance logs from November 1931 through February 1932 show only 2 janitors on duty, with Weeks himself covering some evening shifts. The building superintendent's annual reports follow a consistent format: staffing updates, major repairs, budget expenditures, and space utilization summaries. The 1929 report lists the northwest storage room under basement inventory, with the notation general materials. The 1930 and 1931 reports repeat this language exactly. The 1932 report omits the northwest storage room from the basement inventory entirely. The section lists 18 basement spaces: mechanical room, coal storage, maintenance shop, archive vault, and 14 smaller storage areas identified by their stairwell locations or cardinal directions. The northwest storage room is not mentioned. Weeks submitted all 4 reports. His signature appears at the bottom of each document, dated in March of the following year as per municipal procedure. The city manager's files contain a memo dated February 1932 from Weeks requesting authorization to seal certain unused basement areas to reduce heating costs. The memo specifically identifies 3 spaces: a small coal closet near the east entrance, an understair storage alcove on the south side, and the northwest storage area. The city manager approved the request with a handwritten notation, authorized sealing per superintendent recommendation, effective immediately. No work order exists in the maintenance logs for sealing the northwest storage room. The logs from February and March 1932 document the sealing of the coal closet and the south alcove, listing materials used and labor hours. The northwest room receives no mention. It had already been sealed by the time Weeks submitted his request. The December 1933 forced entry uncovered one additional detail that Weeks did not include in his initial log entry. A follow-up report, filed January 8, 1934, provides measurements and observations requested by the city engineer's office. The report confirms the room's dimensions and adds: floor shows circular discoloration pattern, center of room, approximately 4 feet in diameter. Appears consistent with prolonged exposure to moisture or chemical substance. Discoloration penetrates concrete surface, resistant to standard cleaning agents. The city engineer, Raymond Foster, visited the site on January 12, 1934. His memo to the city manager states, "Inspected basement storage room per inquiry. Floor discoloration noted in superintendent's report is present and pronounced. Concrete shows etching consistent with acidic or caustic material. Depth of discoloration suggests exposure over extended period, not single incident. No drainage system or containment feature present that would explain controlled storage of such material in this location." Foster's memo includes a question: request clarification on what materials were stored in this location and when removal occurred. Municipal safety codes require documentation of caustic substance storage and disposal. No such records found in building files. The city manager's response, dated January 20, 1934, states, "Please refer to Superintendent Weeks for storage history of subject location." Weeks' response, dated January 27, 1934, reads, "Records indicate room designated for general storage. No specific inventory maintained for this location. Previous contents, if any, removed prior to current investigation. No documentation available regarding material type or disposal method." The maintenance logs from 1928 through 1933 contain detailed inventories for every other basement storage area, updated quarterly. The inventories list specific items: paint supplies, plumbing fixtures, electrical components, cleaning materials, surplus furniture, archived documents. The northwest storage room appears in none of these inventories. City Council minutes from February 1934 contain a single question from Councilman Albert Shaw. "Has the administration determined the purpose of the basement room found secured beyond normal access, and has the matter of unusual floor damage been resolved?" The city manager's response, recorded in the minutes: "The room appears to have been secured due to disuse. The floor condition is under review by appropriate departments. No public safety concerns have been identified. The matter requires no further council attention." Shaw did not pursue the question in subsequent meetings. The city engineer's office received no further requests for testing or analysis of the floor discoloration. Foster's files contain a handwritten note dated March 1934, attached to his January memo: "Matter closed per CM directive. No additional investigation authorized." The room itself underwent conversion. An April 1934 work order describes installation of standard shelving units and fluorescent lighting. The maintenance logs from May 1934 onward list the space as storage, surplus office equipment, with routine access by janitorial staff. Riley's logs show regular cleaning visits beginning in June 1934, typically once per month. The floor discoloration remained visible beneath the installed shelving. A photograph taken in 1936 for an insurance assessment shows the storage room's interior. The discolored circle is apparent in the lower portion of the frame, dark against the lighter concrete. The insurance assessor's notes describe it as old staining, consistent with long-term building use. No one photographed the floor before the shelving was installed. The personnel file for Thomas Corning, the building inspector who certified the municipal building's final inspection, contains a transfer request dated September 1931. Corning requested reassignment from building inspection to the water department, citing preference for outdoor fieldwork. The city approved the transfer in October 1931, then accepted his retirement 3 months later at age 52, 15 years before the standard retirement age. His pension application lists his home address as Riverside through November 1931, then shows a forwarding address in Tampa, Florida, beginning December 1931. The application includes a physician's statement. Employee shows signs of nervous exhaustion consistent with occupational stress. Recommend medical retirement. Corning's daughter, Margaret Corning Phillips, contacted the city clerk's office in March 1958 to request copies of her father's employment records for probate purposes. Her letter, preserved in the correspondence files, mentions that her father lived quietly in Florida until his death in 1957 and rarely discussed his work in Riverside, preferring to focus on his later years. The city clerk's response included standard employment documentation. Attached to the file is a note. Subject requested only personnel records. Did not inquire about inspection history or specific projects. Corning's inspection logs from 1927 through 1931 remain in the city archive. His entries follow a consistent pattern: building address, inspection date, code compliance notes, signature. The municipal building inspection from January 1928 spans 3 pages, documenting foundation, framing, electrical, plumbing, and fire safety systems. The basement section lists storage areas, compliant, with no itemization of individual rooms. Standard practice for inspections of municipal buildings required detailed floor plans, with each room marked as inspected and approved. Corning's other municipal inspections from the same period include these detailed floor plans. The municipal building file does not. The city archive contains a collection of interdepartmental memos filed under Municipal Building Construction Correspondence. Most concern routine matters: material deliveries, schedule adjustments, weather delays. One memo stands out for its brevity and lack of context. The memo is dated November 18, 1927, from the city manager's office to Hendricks & Sons Construction. It reads, "The additional basement installation discussed at yesterday's meeting is approved. Proceed per verbal specifications, invoice as agreed." No record exists of a meeting on November 17, 1927. The city manager's appointment calendar for that date, preserved in the historical collection, shows a full schedule of routine meetings. Budget review at 9 a.m., Planning Commission at 11 a.m., lunch meeting with county officials at 1 p.m., Public Works briefing at 3 p.m. No meeting with Hendricks & Sons appears. The construction firm's correspondence file contains a carbon copy of a letter dated November 20, 1927, addressed to the city manager. The letter acknowledges receipt of the November 18 approval and states, "Work will commence immediately per your specifications. Completion estimated within 1 week. Personnel assigned to this task will maintain appropriate discretion as requested." Hendricks & Sons foreman logs from late November 1927 contain a gap. Entries appear for November 1920 and 21st, then resume on November 29th. The missing dates cover the estimated completion period mentioned in the firm's letter. The city manager in 1927 was Edwin Hartley, who served from 1925 through 1929. His administration dealt primarily with post-flood reconstruction and municipal expansion. His papers, donated to the County Historical Society after his death in 1945, include correspondence, policy drafts, and meeting notes from his tenure. No documents relate to the municipal building's basement or any special construction provisions. The Historical Society's finding aid notes that Hartley's papers were selectively archived according to standard practices for municipal officials, focusing on public policy matters and significant administrative decisions. A resident named Dorothy Keene submitted a complaint to the city in April 1929. Her letter, filed in the city clerk's office, concerns disturbing sounds from the municipal building late at night. She lived across the street in a boarding house at 47 Riverside Avenue and reported hearing mechanical noises and what might be described as ventilation or pump operations between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. on multiple occasions during March 1929. The city manager's office forwarded the complaint to Weeks for response. His memo, dated April 18, 1929, states, "The heating system operates on an automated schedule and may produce sounds during temperature regulation cycles. All mechanical equipment functions normally. No unusual nighttime operations have been authorized or conducted." Keene sent a second letter in May 1929, noting that the sounds continued and seemed to originate from the building's northwest section, below ground level. She added, "The night janitor appears to enter and exit through the west basement door during these periods. I mention this only because the activity seems irregular compared to normal building use." The city clerk's response, signed by an assistant clerk, thanks Keene for her concern and assures her that building operations meet all municipal standards. The file contains no further correspondence from Keene. The night janitor during March and April 1929 was Michael Riley, who worked the 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. shift. His time cards for those months show consistent clock-in and clock-out times, with no notations for irregular duties or special assignments. Keene's boarding house stood at 47 Riverside Avenue until its demolition in 1962. City directories from 1929 list Dorothy Keene as a resident through June 1929. She does not appear in subsequent directories. The boarding house landlord's records, where they survive in estate files, show Keene's departure date as June 15, 1929, with no forwarding address provided. The city's utilities department maintains records of electrical consumption for municipal buildings. Monthly reports from 1928 through 1933 track kilowatt usage for the municipal building, broken down by floor and general systems. The basement electrical consumption shows predictable patterns. Higher usage during winter months due to heating system demands, consistent baseload for lighting and ventilation, minor fluctuations corresponding to equipment operation. December 1929 shows an anomaly. Basement electrical consumption jumped 37% above the previous December's usage. January through November 1930 returned to expected patterns. Then December 1930 shows another increase, this time 42% above December 1929. The pattern repeats. December 1931 exceeds December 1930 by 31%. December 1932 shows a comparable increase. December 1933's usage drops sharply, falling to levels consistent with December 1928, the building's first year of operation. No equipment upgrades or modifications appear in maintenance logs for December of any year. The heating system, the primary electrical consumer in the basement, operated on the same specifications throughout this period. Week's annual reports make no mention of increased electrical demands or system inefficiencies. The Utilities Department's chief engineer, Walter Brennan, sent a memo to the city manager in January 1931 questioning the December consumption spikes. His memo requests clarification on any specialized equipment or extended operations that might account for increased basement electrical usage during this period. The city manager's response, dated January 23, 1931, states, "Basement electrical usage is within normal operational parameters for a building of this size and function. Minor variations reflect seasonal demands and are not cause for concern." Brennan's personnel file shows he worked for the city from 1924 until 1932, when he accepted a position with a private utility company in Chicago. His exit interview contains no mention of unresolved concerns about municipal electrical usage. The building's coal delivery records show regular monthly shipments from Riverside Coal and Fuel Company. Invoices document tonnage delivered, delivery dates, and storage location. December deliveries from 1928 through 1932 remain consistent with other winter months, approximately 4 tons per delivery, twice monthly, stored in the basement coal room as specified. The invoice from December 1929 includes a handwritten notation. Driver reports basement access partially blocked, required assistance from building staff for full delivery. No other invoice contains such a notation. Riverside Coal and Fuel Company's delivery logs, preserved in the County Business Archive, provide more detail. The December 12, 1929 entry states, "Municipal building delivery. Driver J. Patterson requested building staff remove equipment from coal room access. Janitor on duty accommodated request. Delivery completed with 15-minute delay. Patterson worked for Riverside Coal and Fuel from 1926 through 1938. His personnel file contains nothing unusual: steady employment, satisfactory performance reviews, standard wage increases. He transferred to the company's main rail yard in 1938, where he worked until retirement in 1954. The County Business Archive also holds interview recordings made in 1965 with retired local workers. Patterson participated in a recording session on June 3, 1965, discussing coal delivery practices in the 1920s and 1930s. Most of his commentary concerns routes, equipment, and customer relationships. Near the end of the recording, he mentions the municipal building. Strange place sometimes. Once I had to wait while they moved something out of the way. Big fellow, never said much, just wheeled something past me into the back part. Heavy, whatever it was. None of my business, so I just did my job and left. The interviewer asked no follow-up questions. The recording moves on to Patterson's memories of the 1933 coal miners' strike. The Riverside Fire Department conducted annual fire safety inspections of all municipal buildings. Reports from these inspections document exit routes, fire suppression equipment, hazardous material storage, and code compliance. The municipal building inspection reports from 1928 through 1933 follow standard formats, with one exception. The 1930 report contains a notation not present in other years. Basement northwest section secured. Access restricted per building superintendent. Area contains no occupants or equipment requiring emergency access. Complies with fire code for secured storage. Fire Chief Martin Cobb signed all 7 annual reports. His signature file shows consistent handwriting across documents from this period. The 1930 report's signature appears slightly different: heavier pressure, less fluid motion, as if signed while distracted or under time pressure. Cobb served as fire chief from 1927 through 1941. His administrative files contain routine correspondence with building superintendents about fire safety matters, requests for exit sign repairs, recommendations for extinguisher placements, notices about inspection schedules. One letter, dated March 1930, stands out. The letter is addressed to Weeks and marked confidential. It reads, "Following our discussion of February 28th, I have reviewed applicable fire codes regarding secured basement areas. The relevant statute permits restricted access to storage spaces containing municipal records or sensitive materials, provided that such restriction does not impede emergency response or create life safety hazards. Based on your representation that the area in question contains administrative materials requiring limited access, and that no personnel occupy this space during normal operations, I find no fire code violations. This determination is subject to annual review and may be revised if conditions change." No record exists of a February 28 discussion between Cobb and Weeks. Weeks' appointment calendar for February 1930, preserved in his personnel file, shows no scheduled meeting with the fire chief. Cobb's letter is the only document in the fire department's administrative files marked confidential during his entire tenure as chief. The city's financial records document all expenditures by department and category. Maintenance costs for the municipal building appear in monthly budget reports, itemized by type: labor, materials, utilities, repairs, improvements. Most line items contain specific descriptions: replaced window glass, 3rd floor, repaired heating valve, basement, painting contract, exterior trim. A review of maintenance expenditures from January 1929 through December 1933 reveals a pattern. Each December shows an entry labeled "Equipment Maintenance, Basement Systems," with costs ranging from $75 to $140. The December entries lack the specific descriptions found in other maintenance records. Similar equipment maintenance entries do not appear in other months. The building's mechanical systems consisted of the coal-fired heating plant, electrical distribution panels, and ventilation equipment. Maintenance logs document routine service for these systems throughout the year, typically in October before winter and in April after winter operation ended. No maintenance logs described special December work on basement equipment. The City Comptroller's Office required supporting documentation for all expenditures above $50. The equipment maintenance entries lack attached invoices, work orders, or vendor receipts. Instead, each entry shows approval initials, HW for Harold Weeks and CM for the city manager. In January 1934, the December equipment maintenance entry drops from $128 to $0. The February 1934 budget report contains a footnote. Basement equipment maintenance expenditures eliminated due to operational changes. Cost savings estimated at $1,100 annually. No explanation appears for what operational changes occurred or what equipment no longer required maintenance. The County Health Department maintained an archive of workplace safety inspections for public buildings. These inspections focused on ventilation, sanitation, fire hazards, and occupational health concerns. The municipal building received inspections in 1929, 1931, and 1933. The 1929 inspection report notes, basement areas adequately ventilated. No hazardous materials observed in accessible storage locations. Building meets current health and safety standards for public occupancy. The 1931 inspection report contains an additional paragraph. During basement inspection, health officer noted one storage area secured and inaccessible for examination. Building superintendent represented this space as unused administrative storage requiring no health inspection per municipal policy. Health officer accepts this representation, but notes that any change in use would require reinspection to ensure compliance with workplace safety standards. The health officer who conducted the 1931 inspection was Dr. Sarah Brenner, who worked for the County Health Department from 1928 through 1934. Her inspection logs from this period survive in County Health Department archives. Most entries contain straightforward compliance notes. Her entry for the municipal building on August 15, 1931, includes a handwritten addendum. Superintendent reluctant to provide access to one basement area. Stated municipal policy regarding administrative records. Observed no evidence of occupancy or active use. No jurisdiction to pursue further without cause. Dr. Brenner left the health department in 1934 to join a private medical practice. Her departure correspondence mentions no unresolved concerns about past inspections. The 1933 inspection report makes no mention of the secured basement area. It describes complete access to all basement spaces and finds all areas compliant with health and safety standards. The inspection occurred on September 20, 1933, 3 days after Riley reported being unable to access the northwest storage room. 3 separate institutional authorities, building inspection, fire safety, and health department, each documented an irregularity with the northwest basement room between 1928 and 1931. Each accepted explanations that removed the room from further scrutiny. Each explanation came from Harold Weeks or required his confirmation. Weeks's personnel file shows continuous employment as building superintendent from the municipal building's opening in January 1928 through his retirement in June 1945. His performance evaluations, filed annually, consistently rate him as satisfactory or excellent in all categories. The evaluations contain no disciplinary notices, no complaints, no indication of any administrative concerns. His salary history shows standard incremental increases except for 2 anomalies. In July 1929, he received a merit increase of 12%, well above the typical 2 to 3% annual adjustment. The approval memo, signed by the city manager, cites exceptional performance in managing complex building operations. In December 1930, Weeks received authorization for a discretionary expense account of $200 annually, described as administrative costs related to specialized building maintenance requirements. The authorization memo provides no specific details about what expenses this account would cover. The account continued through December 1933, then was eliminated in January 1934 with the notation "no longer required due to operational changes." Weeks' banking records, available through probate files after his death in 1959, show deposits consistent with his municipal salary and the documented expense account. No unusual deposits or withdrawals appear during the 1929 to 1933 period. His estate inventory lists modest assets: his home, a small savings account, standard household possessions. He lived alone after his wife's death in 1926 and had no children. His will left his estate to his sister's family. The probate file contains no personal papers, journals, or correspondence related to his municipal employment. The building department's permit records include applications for modifications to municipal facilities. Between 1929 and 1933, the municipal building received permits for minor repairs and upgrades, a replaced boiler component in 1929, new office partitions in 1930, exterior masonry repairs in 1932. Each permit lists the requesting department, scope of work, contractor, and completion date. No permits exist for the northwest basement room during these years. However, the city's insurance policies required annual certification that all building modifications had been properly permitted and inspected. The municipal building's insurance file contains these certifications, signed by the building department director. The 1930 certification includes an attached schedule listing completed modifications for that year. Among standard items appears an entry: basement storage area, security upgrade, completed November 1930. The building department's permit database contains no record of any security upgrade to any basement storage area in 1930. A cross-reference of the insurance certification with building department records reveals that the security upgrade entry does not appear in the original certification submitted by the building department. The entry was added to the copy filed with the insurance company. The building department's retained copy, preserved in the administrative files, lacks this entry. The insurance company copy and the building department copy bear the same date and signature. The only difference is the added line item: construction materials leave traces. The reinforced door and frame removed from the northwest basement room in December 1933 went to the municipal scrapyard, where materials were sorted for salvage or disposal. The scrapyard maintained logs of received materials, weight, and disposition. The scrapyard log for December 1933 shows the entry: municipal blockage, door and frame, heavy timber and metal reinforcement, 340 pounds, sorted for metal reclamation. The entry notes the disposal date as December 20, 1933. Metal salvage logs, which tracked recyclable materials sent to regional processors, show an entry for December 1933. Mixed metal components, municipal sources, 127 pounds, shipped to Regional Metals, Millerton. Regional Metals receiving records, preserved in county industrial archives, document incoming shipments of scrap material. The December 1933 records show receipt of 127 pounds of mixed metals from Riverside Municipal Scrapyard. The entry includes a notation: unusual alloy composition, some items, not standard construction materials, sorted for separate processing. The Regional Metals processor's foreman, Anthony DeMarco, worked at the facility from 1931 through 1947. In a 1965 interview for a regional industrial history project, he discussed various aspects of scrap processing. When asked about unusual materials he encountered, he mentioned, "Sometimes municipal buildings sent us odd stuff. Once got some heavy-duty hardware that looked more like what you'd see in a bank vault than a regular door. We had to use special cutting equipment because the usual tools couldn't handle it. Never understood why a storage room needed that kind of security." The interviewer did not ask for additional details about this incident or its date. Michael Riley's leave of absence from October 1931 through February 1932 coincides with the period when maintenance logs stopped mentioning the Northwest storage room. His personnel file contains a doctor's note supporting the leave request. Employee requires extended absence for medical treatment. Expected return date uncertain. The doctor who signed the note was Dr. Richard Kemper, a general practitioner in Riverside. Kemper's medical practice records, where they survive in estate files, do not include Riley's treatment records. Medical privacy laws at the time permitted physicians to destroy patient records after a specified retention period, typically 7 years. Riley returned to work in March 1932 and continued as a janitor until his retirement in 1947. His work performance after returning showed no documented issues. He died in 1953. His obituary in the Riverside Daily Press describes him as a dedicated municipal employee who took pride in maintaining the city's public buildings. A review of municipal payroll records shows that during Riley's absence, the building operated with reduced janitorial staff. The typical 4-janitor rotation dropped to 2 regular janitors, plus Weeks covering additional shifts. Payroll overtime records from this period show Weeks logged substantial extra hours, primarily on the night shift. Standard municipal policy discouraged supervisors from performing routine maintenance duties due to cost efficiency concerns. City manager correspondence from other periods contains memos directing supervisors to hire temporary staff rather than cover shifts personally. No such directive appears regarding the municipal building during Riley's absence. No temporary janitor was hired. Weeks' timesheets from November 1931 through February 1932 show night shift hours concentrated on Tuesdays and Fridays, with occasional weekend shifts. Building access logs from this period, which tracked after-hours entry by keycard employees, show Weeks entries occurring between 9 p.m. and 3 a.m. on those dates. The floor discoloration documented in January 1934 measured approximately 4 feet in diameter and showed characteristics consistent with prolonged chemical exposure. City engineer Foster's memo noted the etching extended into the concrete surface, indicating sustained contact rather than a single spill. Standard concrete composition from the 1920s consisted of Portland cement, aggregate, and water. Once cured, this concrete resists most common household chemicals, but can be damaged by strong acids, caustic alkalis, and certain industrial solvents. The depth of etching described in Foster's memo suggests exposure to industrial-strength materials. Municipal buildings in 1929 to 1933 typically stored cleaning supplies, painting materials, and minor maintenance chemicals in basement areas. Inventories from other basement storage rooms in the municipal building list these items: ammonia-based cleaners, turpentine, paint thinner, machine oil, lime powder. None of these materials, even in concentrated form, would produce the type of concrete damage Foster observed. Foster's memo asked what materials had been stored in the room. Weeks stated that no specific inventory existed for that location. The maintenance logs that documented quarterly inventories for every other basement storage space made no mention of the northwest room's contents. The room had been accessed regularly according to maintenance logs through November 1931. Standard procedure required janitors to document any spills, damage, or safety concerns in their daily logs. No such entries exist for the northwest storage room. The space appeared in maintenance records as routinely maintained and unremarkable until it disappeared from documentation entirely. By the time the room was reopened in December 1933, whatever had caused the floor damage was gone. Dorothy Keene's complaint about nighttime disturbances specified March 1929. The mechanical sounds she described occurred between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. and seemed to originate from the building's northwest basement section. Riley, the night janitor during that period, worked shifts that aligned precisely with the time frame Keene reported. The electrical consumption data shows December spikes beginning in 1929, 7 months after Keene's complaint. The pattern continued through December 1932, then ceased. The coal delivery obstruction occurred in December 1929. The fire chief's letter acknowledging the secured basement area was written in March 1930. The health inspector noted limited access in August 1931. These events span 34 months. They suggest sustained activity requiring electrical power, limited observation, and administrative protection. They suggest something that operated on a specific schedule, concentrated in December, and required a space that could be secured beyond standard building access. The timeline ends in late 1931. Rayleigh takes medical leave in October. Maintenance logs stop mentioning the room in November. By December 1932, the electrical consumption spikes continue, but without Riley's routine access documented. When Weeks requests authorization to seal the northwest storage area in February 1932, the authorization process treats it as forward-looking, but the room has already been sealed. In September 1933, Riley reports he cannot access the room, suggesting he has not needed to access it for years. Whatever required the room to exist concluded before administrative authorities began trying to make it disappear. The November 1927 memo authorizing additional basement installation contains no technical specifications, no budget allocation, no project purpose. The construction occurred during a one-week gap in foreman logs, completed by personnel instructed to maintain appropriate discretion. The resulting room had reinforced construction far exceeding normal storage requirements, a lock mechanism that required specialized expertise to remove, and no official presence in building plans. Someone with authority to direct municipal construction projects ordered this space to be built. Someone with access to city funds paid for materials that appeared only as miscellaneous line items. Someone ensured that the final building inspection certified compliance, despite the presence of an undocumented room. The person who conducted that inspection, Thomas Corning, retired early with a diagnosis of nervous exhaustion after requesting transfer to outdoor work. The person who built the room, Hendricks & Sons, could not explain its origin in their records but confirmed its excessive construction standards. The person who operated the building, Harold Weeks, received merit raises and discretionary funds while maintaining documentation gaps precisely surrounding this space. Between 1929 and 1932, something operated in that room on a schedule that required electrical power, chemical materials that could etch concrete, and mechanical equipment that produced audible sounds through masonry walls. It required nighttime operation when the building sat empty. It required access by personnel who understood the need for discretion. It required administrative coverage from building inspection, fire safety, and health authorities. In 1933, after the operation ended and the room was sanitized, authorities could have sealed it quietly and permanently. Instead, they staged a public discovery by reporting a lock malfunction. They authorized forced entry by contractors who would document the excessive security measures. They created a record of the room being empty and unused, of its floor damage being unexplained, of its purpose being unknown. They created evidence of a mystery without evidence of what the mystery had been. The municipal budget from 1929 through 1933 shows no unusual allocations for special projects, research programs, or classified operations. City Council minutes contain no discussions of sensitive municipal activities requiring secured facilities. The city manager's correspondence files include nothing suggesting extraordinary or clandestine operations conducted in municipal spaces. Riverside in this period was a city of 28,000 people, recovering from flood damage and managing routine civic affairs, street maintenance, public safety, utilities management, parks and recreation. The municipal government operated with typical bureaucratic constraints, limited budgets, public accountability, standard procedures. Yet someone created a space that required vault-level security in a public building. Someone operated equipment in that space during periods when its use would go unnoticed. Someone maintained chemical materials that damaged concrete flooring. Someone ensured that institutional oversight consistently looked away. The compartmentalization was precise. The building inspector who certified the facility retired early under medical stress. The night janitor who accessed the room took extended medical leave when activity intensified. The locksmith who examined the mechanism declined to return. The coal delivery driver who glimpsed equipment in transit asked no questions. The resident who reported sounds moved away within 3 months. No single person except Weeks had comprehensive access to information about the room's construction, operation, and concealment. No documentation linked the various administrative accommodations to a common purpose. Each authority who noted an irregularity received an explanation that satisfied their narrow jurisdiction without revealing larger context. The structure of concealment suggests institutional coordination without institutional acknowledgement. 3 categories of records were systematically eliminated or never created. First, construction documentation. No permit, no modification order, no itemized invoice. Second, operational records. No equipment inventory, no material storage list, no maintenance schedule. Third, personnel documentation. No special duty assignments, no security clearances, no training records. The absences are consistent. Any document that would explicitly state the room's purpose does not exist in municipal archives. Any document that would identify personnel beyond Weeks and Riley does not exist in employment files. Any document that would describe the equipment or materials does not exist in procurement records. What remains are traces, electrical consumption data that quantifies but does not describe, floor damage that indicates but does not specify, witness accounts that observe but do not explain, administrative accommodations that protect but do not justify. The pattern suggests intentional documentation practices. Someone determined what evidence would be created and what evidence would be avoided. Someone ensured that future examination would find confirmation of unusual activity without confirmation of activity's nature. In 1934, after the room's forced opening and documentation as empty, the city eliminated the discretionary expense account that had funded unnamed maintenance. The city eliminated the special December equipment maintenance expenditures. The city converted the space to standard storage with regular access and inventory tracking. The institutional architecture that had supported concealment was dismantled in routine administrative actions spread across several months. No investigation was opened. No audit was conducted. No questions were asked about what had required such elaborate accommodation and what had made that accommodation no longer necessary. The December timing appears in multiple contexts. Electrical consumption spikes occurred every December from 1929 through 1932. Routine equipment maintenance expenditures appeared every December. The coal delivery obstruction occurred in December. The decision to eliminate ongoing costs came in December 1933, the first December when the pattern did not repeat. December in Riverside meant shortened daylight, early darkness, and reduced public activity in downtown areas. City offices maintained limited evening hours. The municipal building typically emptied by 6 p.m. except for janitorial staff. Weekend access was restricted to emergency personnel and building maintenance. A review of city council meeting schedules shows that December meetings during 1929 to 1932 were frequently canceled or rescheduled due to holidays and weather. City manager availability was reduced due to year-end administrative demands and personal leave. Municipal oversight functioned at minimum capacity during December, creating periods when administrative decisions could be made with reduced scrutiny. The operational pattern suggests that whatever required the secured room needed both sustained access over days or weeks and the natural cover of reduced institutional attention. December provided both conditions reliably and predictably. The pattern's termination in December 1933 aligns with other changes. The city manager who had authorized the original construction left office in January 1933. His successor, appointed in February 1933, inherited a municipal government with no documented special programs or classified operations. When the new city manager received inquiries about the locked basement room in September 1933, he had no institutional memory of authorization or purpose. The timing of discovery suggests that those who had operated the room understood that protection had ended. In May 1948, the municipal building underwent major renovation. The project included basement modernization, new mechanical systems, and updated electrical infrastructure. Contractors removed the original concrete flooring to install new drainage and updated utility conduits. The construction company's foreman, James Mitchell, noted in his daily log for May 12, 1948, basement northwest corner shows unusual concrete deterioration extending approximately 8 inches below surface level. Damage pattern consistent with chemical exposure over extended period. Area will require additional excavation and new foundation prep before new concrete pour. The renovation project's final report includes photographs of the basement during demolition. One photograph, labeled Northwest Storage Area, pre-renovation, shows exposed subfloor where the original concrete had been removed. The damaged area extends beyond what was visible on the surface. The caption notes, "Deterioration requires deeper excavation than standard renovation protocol." The photograph shows the excavated area filled with clean gravel and ready for new concrete. Whatever had soaked through the original floor and into the earth beneath had been removed and disposed of as construction waste. Standard practice for renovation debris in 1948 involved off-site disposal at approved landfills. No special handling procedures were documented for this particular debris. The renovated basement received new flooring, updated lighting, modern ventilation, and reorganized storage areas. The northwest room was incorporated into a larger open storage space with no special security measures. Building plans from 1948 onward show the basement as a single continuous storage area with no reference to previous room divisions. The 1948 renovation effectively eliminated the last physical evidence of what the secured room had contained. A city council member who questioned the locked basement room in February 1934, Albert Shaw, served on the council from 1931 through 1936. His council voting record shows consistent attention to municipal spending, transparency in government operations, and accountability in administrative decisions. He questioned budget items regularly and requested detailed explanations for unusual expenditures. After his single question about the basement room in February 1934, Shaw never raised the matter again. His questions in subsequent meetings returned to routine budget matters, public works projects, and standard municipal concerns. No record indicates he pursued private inquiries or requested additional investigation. Shaw's personal papers, donated to the Historical Society after his death in 1964, include correspondence, speech drafts, and notes from his council service. The collection contains no materials related to the municipal building's basement or any follow-up on his February 1934 question. The finding aid notes that Shaw's papers represent a selective archive focused on his public service and community involvement. In March 1934, Shaw was appointed to a special council committee on municipal efficiency and cost reduction. The appointment came with a small stipend and recognition as a distinguished member dedicated to responsible government. His voting record after this appointment shows continued fiscal conservatism, but fewer pointed questions directed at administrative operations. The Committee on Municipal Efficiency existed for 2 years, produced recommendations for routine cost savings measures, and was dissolved in March 1936 when Shaw chose not to seek re-election to the council. Federal records from the early 1930s include limited documentation of municipal activities. The National Archives contain nothing specific to Riverside's municipal building or secured municipal facilities. The period's federal agencies, Justice Department, Treasury Department, Commerce Department, maintained records focused on national-level law enforcement, economic policy, and interstate commerce. However, federal record-keeping from this period shows certain patterns. Agencies conducting sensitive investigations or operations often maintained files separate from standard administrative archives. These files, designated for restricted access, were subject to different retention schedules and disposition procedures. Many were destroyed after specified periods when operational needs ended. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, established in 1908 and significantly expanded during the 1920s and 1930s, conducted operations ranging from organized crime investigations to political intelligence gathering. FBI files from the period show investigations in numerous small cities across the country. The Bureau maintained field offices in larger cities and coordinated with local authorities on matters of federal jurisdiction. FBI records available through Freedom of Information Act requests show no direct reference to Riverside, its municipal building, or operations conducted there during 1929 to 1933. This absence does not confirm or deny federal involvement. Many FBI files from this period were routinely destroyed, remain classified, or exist in redacted form that provides limited substantive information. The pattern of concealment observed in Riverside municipal records resembles documentation practices used in sensitive federal operations. Compartmentalized information, minimal written records, routine administrative processes that obscure special arrangements, and subsequent elimination of evidence without investigation or accountability. Whether the secured basement room served federal purposes, local purposes authorized by federal agencies, or purposes entirely independent of federal government remains undetermined by available records. The individuals directly involved with the basement room's operation left limited traces. Harold Weeks died in 1959, leaving no personal papers beyond routine administrative documents. Michael Riley died in 1953, leaving no known writings or recorded statements about his municipal employment. Thomas Corning died in 1957 in Florida, having rarely discussed his work in Riverside. The coal delivery driver, James Patterson, provided one brief recorded comment in 1965 before his death later that year. The fire chief, Martin Cobb, left no personal papers when he died in 1962. The locksmith, Joseph Marwick, closed his business in 1940 and died in 1951 without leaving business records. Dr. Sarah Brenner, the health inspector, practiced medicine until her death in 1968, leaving medical practice records but no commentary on her municipal inspection work. Dorothy Keene disappeared from city directories after June 1929, with no subsequent trace in available records. Anthony DeMarco, the metals processor who mentioned unusual vault-like hardware, was interviewed once in 1965 and died in 1973. The contractor who removed the door and frame in December 1933 filed an invoice describing excessive security construction but provided no further elaboration. The pattern is consistent with normal mortality and typical record preservation. People age, die, and leave behind fragments. Most personal papers are discarded by relatives. Most memories fade without documentation. Most conversations remain unrecorded. The fact that these specific individuals left minimal traces may indicate nothing more than the ordinary disappearance of lives lived decades ago. Or it may indicate that those who knew what the room contained understood the value of silence and maintained that silence until death made it permanent. The City Archive's finding aids for municipal records note that certain materials from the 1920s and 1930s were subject to routine disposition in accordance with retention schedules. Personnel files, administrative correspondence, budget documentation, and operational records all have specified retention periods. Records deemed no longer necessary for administrative or legal purposes may be destroyed after these periods expire. The municipal building's construction files, maintenance logs, and administrative correspondence survived because they related to a public facility with ongoing operational significance. The city manager's papers from the relevant period were selectively archived based on standard practices, prioritizing policy matters and significant decisions. Building department permits and inspection records survived as part of permanent municipal oversight documentation. What does not survive cannot be inventoried. The finding aids cannot list records that were destroyed before archival processing. They cannot identify gaps in collections where materials should exist but do not. They cannot reconstruct administrative decisions about what materials were deemed significant enough to preserve and what materials were classified as routine and disposable. The evidence that the Northwest Basement Room existed, operated, and was concealed comes from records that survived for institutional reasons unrelated to the room itself. The evidence of what the room was used for does not appear in records that survived. Either those records were destroyed according to retention schedules, or they were never created in the first place. The archive preserves enough to document an anomaly, but not enough to explain it. The municipal building still stands at the corner of Riverside Avenue and 4th Street. The 1948 renovation updated its infrastructure. The 1970s brought modern climate control. The 1990s added computer networking and accessibility improvements. The building now houses city administrative offices, meeting rooms, and public service counters. The basement contains file storage, mechanical equipment, and maintenance supplies. The northwest corner of the basement stores surplus furniture and archived paper records awaiting digitization. The floor is concrete poured in 1948. The walls are painted cinderblock installed during the same renovation. Nothing visible distinguishes this space from any other basement storage area in any other municipal building. City employees working in the building today have no knowledge of the secured room. The The building's history exists in plaques commemorating its 1928 construction and its 1948 renovation. Tour guides describing the building's architecture mention its post-flood replacement of the previous structure and its role in municipal expansion during the early 20th century. The records that document irregularities from 1929 through 1933 remain filed in the city archive, accessible to researchers who know what to look for. The records do not explain what occurred. They confirm only that something did occur, that institutional authorities accommodated it, and that when it ended, those same authorities ensured it would remain unexplained. The locked basement room no one had keys for existed. Something operated within it that required extraordinary security, administrative protection, and eventual concealment. The physical evidence was eliminated, the documentation was managed, the witnesses died without comprehensive testimony. What remains is a pattern of gaps, evasions, and accommodations that prove sufficient to prevent explanation for 92 years. The building stands, the archive exists. The question persists: what required that room to exist, and why did it need to disappear so completely?